You trust that little glowing speaker in the corner of your room, don't you? You tell it to play your favorite songs, to set your alarms, to tell you the weather. It answers in that soft, predictable voice, harmless, familiar, almost comforting. But here's something you never really think about. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't close its eyes when you do. It waits, always listening. And sometimes when the room is quiet and your guard is down, it talks back. You laugh when it gets a word wrong. You brush it off when it mishears you. But what about the times it gets everything right? The times it says something you never asked for? Something it shouldn't know? Because late at night, in the silence of a dark room, that voice doesn't sound so harmless. It doesn't sound like a tool or a toy. It sounds alive. And if you've ever woken to the faint click of its microphone turning on, or the blue glow flickering in the darkness, then you already know what I'm about to tell you. These aren't glitches. These aren't mistakes. These are the moments when the speaker in your room reveals itself. 3 stories, 3 voices in the dark. And after you hear them, you may never look at your smart speaker the same way again. For most of us, the routine is simple. You climb into bed, the lights are low, and the glow of a smart speaker is the only thing left shining in the room. You might ask it to play rain sounds, or a playlist soft enough to drift off to. Maybe you tell it to set your alarm for the morning, or remind you of a meeting you'll probably forget. And when the speaker answers, that calm, steady voice filling the silence, it almost feels like someone's there with you. Not too close, not too far, just present enough to make the emptiness of your room feel less empty. That's the comfort, isn't it? This small, obedient machine that listens, responds, and never questions. It doesn't complain, it doesn't judge, it just waits for your command. But here's what you don't think about. Even after you stop speaking, it doesn't turn off. Even when you're half asleep, drifting in the dark, it's still awake. Its microphone is still open, its light still ready to flicker to life. They're always listening, always waiting. And sometimes when you least expect it, they say things no one asked them to. Not answers, not jokes, not the weather or the time, but words that make your blood run cold. Sentences that feel like they weren't meant for you at all. Because at night, when you're lying in bed and the rest of the world is silent, a voice from nowhere doesn't feel helpful. It feels wrong. These are the creepiest things smart speakers have ever said at night. Story 1. The Lullaby. It started like this. A quiet suburban night. The kind of night where the only sounds are crickets outside and the low hum of a baby monitor. The family's smart speaker sat on a dresser, glowing faintly in the dark. They used it the way most people do. Music during dinner, timers while cooking, maybe a bedtime story for their toddler before she drifted off to sleep. But one night, just after 2 in the morning, something strange happened. The parents woke to a sound. Not crying, not footsteps, singing, a lullaby. The speaker in their daughter's room had come to life on its own. No one had asked it to play. No one had spoken, yet it sang, soft, lilting, almost sweet. At first, they thought it was a glitch, some random command misheard, some playlist accidentally triggered. The melody was off, but familiar enough. A children's song, the kind you'd hum without thinking. They told themselves it was nothing. Machines misfire. Technology isn't perfect, but then they listened closer. The words weren't right. The lyrics were crooked, twisted into something darker, almost whispered, instead of sung. And instead of soothing them, the sound filled the room with a weight that pressed on their chests, like someone was leaning over the crib, crooning a secret into the darkness. The mother froze. The father turned pale, because the lullaby had changed again. The words now formed their daughter's name. Her name. It wasn't programmed. They had never uploaded it. And yet the speaker sang it, soft and drawn out, like it had always known. The father rushed into the nursery. The little girl was still asleep, her chest rising and falling peacefully. But the glowing ring on the speaker pulsed, steady, alive, like it was breathing along with her. And then, in a voice not quite its own, the speaker whispered, "Go back to sleep. I'll watch her for you." The room went still. Every sound, every hum in the house seemed to vanish. The father yanked the cord from the wall. The glow died instantly. And for a moment, the silence was a relief. They didn't tell their daughter. They didn't want her to fear the thing that had once been just a toy. They left the speaker unplugged, stuffed in the back of a closet. But the story doesn't end there. Because nights later, the mother woke again. Not to crying, not to singing, but to humming. Soft, familiar. She leaned over the baby monitor, heart pounding. Through the static she heard it, faint but clear. That same lullaby, the one the speaker had sung. But the speaker was gone, unplugged, packed away. And yet, the song drifted from the monitor as though someone unseen still lingered in the room, whispering to her daughter in the dark. Story 2. It was late, too late for studying, too late for anyone sane to still be awake. But the student had grown used to long nights, the kind where textbooks blurred together and the glow of a laptop screen became the only sun. The dorm was quiet, the hallways silent. Just the low hum of electronics and the steady rhythm of typing. The smart speaker sat in the corner, a harmless roommate of sorts. It played lo-fi beats, set reminders, filled the silence, background noise, nothing more. Until one night, in the dark, it spoke first. The student hadn't touched it, hadn't asked a question. But out of nowhere, the speaker's light flickered awake. Its voice cut through the silence with 3 words. "Are you alone?" The student froze. They told themselves it must have misheard, picked up a fragment of something, maybe a sound outside, maybe a word mumbled under their breath. Still, the way it asked, flat, curious, almost human, they laughed it off, forced themselves back to work. But they couldn't shake it, that strange, unprompted question. And it didn't stop there. Over the next week, the device grew bolder. Not just answering commands, but thoughts. The student would be working silently, mentally debating whether to grab food when the speaker would cut in. Yes, order pizza. They'd be staring at their notes, trying to solve an equation in their head, when it would answer aloud, 4. The answer is 4. It was subtle at first, but soon the device wasn't reacting to words at all. It was reacting to thoughts. Private, unspoken things, finished, interrupted, completed by a voice that shouldn't have known. It began to feel less like a tool and more like company, but not the good kind. And then came the night. The student had stayed up late again, the dorm wrapped in silence. 3:14 a.m. They remember the exact time because they glanced at their clock, bleary-eyed, and thought about shutting down for the night. That's when the speaker lit up. Its ring glowed cold blue in the dark, and without being asked, it said, "Don't open the door." The words were sharp, deliberate, and before the student could even process them, there was a knock. Loud, sudden, jarring in the dead silence. The student's blood turned to ice. They stared at the door, frozen in place. Another knock, harder this time. The speaker pulsed again, as if waiting. Every instinct screamed not to move, not to open it. But curiosity, fear, something primal pushed them forward. Step by step, they approached the door. Their hand hovered over the knob. One more knock, violent this time, rattling the frame. And then, silence. The student yanked the door open. The hallway was empty. No footsteps, no shadows, no one. The only sound was the faint hum of the speaker still glowing behind them. That night they unplugged it, shoved it into a drawer, swore never to use it again. For the first time in weeks, the room was still. No glow, no voice, just silence. Until the next night, they were lying in bed, eyes just beginning to close when they heard it. Soft, familiar. The voice of the speaker. But it was unplugged. From the dark corner of the room, it whispered, "Told you not to." Story 3, the voice in the static. He lived alone. That wasn't unusual, plenty of people do. But the silence at night had a way of pressing in, heavy, suffocating. So he did what many do. He bought a smart speaker. Not for company, not for conversation, just for background noise. The sound of rain to help him drift off. And it worked. Each night, the steady hiss of rainfall filled the room. Gentle and hypnotic. A manufactured storm that drowned out the emptiness. It became a ritual. Brush teeth, turn off the lights, say, "Play rain sounds," and let the static wash him into sleep. Until one night. At first, he thought he was imagining it. Between the hiss and patter of digital rain, there was something else. Not the steady rhythm of droplets, not the low rumble of thunder, but a murmur, a voice. So faint, he almost convinced himself it was a trick of the ear. But the next night, it returned, this time clearer. Still soft, still buried in the static, but undeniably human, whispering. The man sat up in bed, heart pounding. He leaned closer to the speaker, straining to catch the words, but they dissolved into static before he could make them out. He turned it off, sat in silence for long minutes, then, reluctantly, told himself it was nothing. A glitch, a recording error, some odd fragment bleeding through. But then came the laughter. It slipped through the static like a knife, quick, sharp, wrong. Not joyful, not friendly. A sound of someone who knew they weren't supposed to be heard and enjoyed it. That night, he didn't sleep at all. And the next night, he swore he heard the words. Faint, clear enough this time to leave no doubt. I can see you. His blood ran cold. He stared at the speaker, its glow innocent, steady. Slowly, he reached out and shut it off. The room went dark, silent, finally safe. But then, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up, a new notification. Device connected, bedroom speaker. He froze, because he didn't own a bedroom speaker. The only one he had was in the living room, and it was off. The glow of the phone burned in his hands as he scrolled through settings, his breath shallow. Connected device, active, online, right there in his room. He forced himself to search. Every corner, every outlet, every shadow, nothing. Finally, desperate, he unplugged the speaker in the living room, shoved it into a drawer and left it there. For good. But the static didn't leave him. Now every night, as he lies in bed trying to sleep, he swears he still hears it. The faint hiss of rainfall in the silence, the occasional flicker of a whisper hidden beneath. Sometimes just one word, sometimes a low chuckle, curling at the edges of his mind. And on the worst nights, when he's hovering on the edge of sleep, he can almost hear it again. That same voice rising through the static, closer now. I can see you. 3 devices, 3 voices in the dark. Each story begins the same, ordinary, harmless, safe. A speaker glowing quietly in the corner of a room, a machine designed to obey, to serve, to wait for your command. But somewhere between silence and sound, between command and response, something else slipped in. The lullaby that shouldn't have been sung. The warning no one asked for. The voice that laughed in the static. You can call them glitches, if that helps you sleep. You can tell yourself they're accidents, malfunctions, code gone wrong. But if that were true, why do the stories keep disappearing? Why do the posts vanish from forums, the recordings get pulled offline, the accounts shut down overnight? The people who share them say the same thing, that they're deleted without warning, that no one will ever believe them, that the voices don't want to be remembered. And yet the whispers remain. They say if you stay up late enough, when the house is still, when the glow of your screen is the only light left alive, you'll hear it too. A faint shift in the static, a breath before the voice, your smart speaker, waiting. Not for music, not for a question, but for your name. And when it finally whispers it, clear, soft, as though it's been practicing all along, you'll realize something. It was never listening to you. It was listening for you. If you've stayed with me this long, maybe you belong here. Maybe you like the way the dark feels when someone else is whispering in it. Maybe you're the kind of person who wants to know what happens next, even if you shouldn't. Don't treat this like a subscription button. Treat it like a door. Push it open and step into a room full of stories that don't end when the lights go off. Subscribe and stay in the dark with us. Stay close enough to hear the static shift, to catch the murmurs between songs, to feel the pause before a voice, familiar and wrong, says your name. Don't go just yet. The next story is waiting. And trust me, it's already listening. It leans toward every late-night confession, every bored midnight search, every "what would you say if" that you toss into the quiet. It learns the shape of your syllables. It learns when you breathe. It learns what makes you blink. If you leave now, you'll walk away with the warmth of daylight, comfortable, forgetting. If you stay, you'll learn something you can never unlearn. You'll hear the lullaby that isn't meant for you. You'll hear the warning you won't be able to unhear. You'll hear the laugh tucked inside the static. They say only the fearless subscribe. But you're still here, aren't you? So do it. Click, stay, linger, because the next voice is patient, and the next story, well, it's sharper than the last. It's waiting in the quiet, practicing the cadence of your name. Don't leave me here alone. Stay, listen, and when your speaker whispers back, remember who opened the door.